Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Jencius. I happen to be a faculty member at Kent State University with a real love of technology, a podcaster, and an avid Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content. Currently, that's photography of plants and birds and panoramic sequences.
Today with us, we have Matt Waller. He's an adopter of Apple Vision Pro and a developer of the Passage app. And we've had a couple of developers on. They're fascinating folks to talk to, not being a developer myself or being that deep into the coding and the putting together of apps. It's just fascinating to hear the take not only on the app or apps that you've created, but just that process and how it goes about putting it together. Why don't you introduce yourself for us and for the listeners?
Yeah, my name's Matt, and I've been a developer for Apple's platforms for a long time, for about over a decade, and really enjoyed all of Apple's spatial computing. Before it was spatial computing, I jumped in there when ARKit 1 first came out and started making augmented reality apps, and really it was just the coolest thing. Once I saw virtual objects and things placed kind of in my real world area, I was just hooked. And so I've been a fan ever since. And once Apple finally announced that Apple Vision Pro was on the horizon, a friend and I, we jumped in and started developing for it. We grabbed the betas from last year's WWDC and started coding things up, doing the best we could with the simulator, and then finally getting a ticket to a developer lab and refining and finally launching on day one. It was really fun. We got to see our tiny app icon in the big WWDC keynote. We were off there to the side with all the other, 600 day one apps. So it was good times there. But yeah, day job. I work in machine learning and kind of advanced statistics to help scientists figure out how to get more energy out than in for nuclear fusion reactions. So a lot of companies and government agencies and things trying to make sustainable energy from nuclear fusion. And so, yeah, I help make the tools to make that happen. So good times.
I'm totally blown away because you describe all the stuff that you've done to kind of get together and put the app together. And that sounds like work, but you make it sound like a hobby when you talk about what you do for a job, that you actually have a day job. We talked to a couple of developers and they do have those things, but it just seems like I could spend all day working on apps and not having a day job. Just pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, that's one of the fun things with the Vision Pro is I'm not a big gamer. So I've had a Quest. I used it a bunch, mostly for fitness, like when Supernatural was hopping, or maybe still is hopping. That was a big use case and such. Eventually just fell back into running outside. And so I still enjoyed it from time to time, but for game purposes, I'm just not that big of a gamer. I eventually got rid of my PS4 and stuff, but because what I kept finding myself doing in my spare time was development. And so there's some indie developers out there who call it with the Vision Pro recreational development. It's just what I do for fun. And that is 100% right. I just really enjoy tinkering with the thing and making cool stuff and putting it out there. So it's just a blast for me. So that's how I like to spend my weekends, for instance, when I don't have the day job going.
It's a good way of doing it. It keeps it enjoyable. Yeah.
I said on this podcast before, I'm not much of a gamer either, although we're going to talk a little bit about some games that have come out. I have a low frustration tolerance for games, and generationally, I grew up with a single joystick and one button, and anything more complicated than that just raises my frustration tolerance. And if I don't see myself getting better in a short period of time, it's like, okay, I'm done. So I would rather enjoy the device for a lot of other reasons, and I think the Vision Pro gives me a lot of other reasons to enjoy the device besides gaming. You want to cover some news for this week, things that have come up? One of the first, and all of these will be in the description of the show. So listeners will be able to get the links from these articles that we're talking about. This is an Apple Insider article. And for the last couple of weeks, we've heard about the big disappointment that Vision OS 2 has been, that it's not, you've got Marquise Brownlee and you've got other people saying this is not a full, and to a degree, Apple Insider was a little lukewarm on the whole idea to start with, but now they come out with an article that's Vision OS 2 is a promising update with tons of new features. So I don't know if they had pushback or what, but this article talks about the kinds of things that we're all familiar with. The navigation piece, which looks like a little thing, and we said last week it really is a big thing for users in terms of navigation. And I'm using that now all the time. What? Yeah. The little turn your hand over. And it took me a while to figure out how to actually do it, but now it's part of the muscle memory when I need to get somewhere.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you start using it, like once you get the hang of it, it feels like a Minority Report vibe. Like I'm swinging my hand around and I'm tapping buttons and stuff's happening on screen, and it's just very fun.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the fact that I can find out how much power is left in my battery with one hand movement instead of having to do multiple looks and clicks. New environments, Bora Bora, supposedly some more coming. You can see them grayed out that are coming soon. And that might be, I mean, your app is about environments.
It is, yeah.
How do you react to this in terms of the buildup?
I mean, yeah, that was one of the big hopes, was that we would get some kind of either a third-party integration and the environments would become kind of like the wallpaper of the iPhone, like either that kind of setup, or it would become the fabled, why can't they let us make third-party watch faces that realized it was on one spectrum or the other. And so what I was kind of hoping for was a little immersion in mode for developers where you could allow third-party apps into your immersive environments. And I thought that would solve a lot of problems and make immersive environments essentially the same, like developers could make their third-party environments and have people do all their things in a very meditative environment or something where they have a ton of control and soundscapes and things like that. And there was one little change in there that was kind of buried in the notes, and you have to have your Vision Pro headset in the developer mode. But when you have it in developer mode, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom of settings, and there's a little toggle at the top of the developer section that says use your Mac inside immersive environments. And the justification is you can use this now and debug from inside immersive environments, and it's more convenient. That's true. But it also makes apps like Passage or other places like 10 times more useful. You can go into popular apps like VR Chat and just have your Mac there and do a ton of work while you're socializing or whatever else. And it was a really cool addition. And I filed feedback hoping that they open that up to other people, other than developers, I mean.
Well, even the fact that they haven't locked it down yet is optimistic to the fact that they're going to keep it open, and that they're once you're in the walled garden, I guess you get to do a little more playing and a little more gardening than you're typically used to on the environment. So yeah, I mean, this Apple Insider article is generally positive about the different changes that are going on with Vision OS 2. The photos, they have the bento chart that has all the different things in it. And, it's a positive spin article, which we don't get a lot of with regard to Apple Vision Pro. An article that was a how-to, and I read through this and it's really fascinating, but it was on 6 colors, and it was how Sandwich streamed the talk show live in 3D on Vision Pro. And it gets into the kind of backstage, the showrunner stuff that needs to be done in terms of making it work. Pretty impressive in terms of watching it through a Vision Pro, and this gives you a little bit more background. I don't know if either of you saw anything super fascinating about this article.
It was interesting to hear that there's enough interest that they might take on some other events.
Yeah.
It was really useful in the event itself, even rewatching it later, being able to flip seats around so you could sit up close or sit a little bit further away and be able to hear what was going on around you. So it wasn't just like fake ambient sounds of people. It was actual audience reactions around you while you're watching it, and that kind of feeling, even if it's not done live, if it's on a rebroadcast of something, is something that's really appealing.
Yeah, and especially as you go around and you hope that they open this up to just musical acts. Like you can imagine like
Yeah.
bands that you're really into being able to stream in 3D live, like that's pretty rich. You know, movie theaters already are having concerts that are popular play around the nations, and this would be a great addition to that kind of setup.
You know, they have some of those sample videos that are the 3D spatial videos that you can get in and watch people and musicians work together. Not enough for my taste. And I think there's an app that's on Vision Pro OS that is basically concerts that have been shot. And again, not a wide enough selection for me to want to pay $10 or $15 for the concert to have, but still interesting. And I hope it blossoms. After that, I've got a series of articles that are simply surrounding this idea of a cheaper Vision Pro. And there were a slew of those articles that came out. One of them in The Verge. I don't know if you've traced some of this back. There was an article in The Information, which people have said is a pretty good source, but they eventually, what this whole story is about is they heard from one supplier who said basically Apple told us that we didn't need to ship any more widgets, or they weren't going to purchase any more widgets from it. Then bled into the sky is falling. They're either going to drop Vision Pro altogether because one supplier is not getting asked to resupply, or they're going to go for then it moved into a cheaper model. So maybe they're looking at some cheaper form factor. I don't want to buy another $3,500 headset. I'm
Yeah.
okay with a cheaper model. We've talked about and we've had a guest who talked about how this is really a developer headset. It's got everything in it. It's the Swiss Army knife of headsets, and further versions of this probably will be smaller, cheaper, and not have all of the intense technology associated with it in it. Yeah.
I found it. One of the articles was kind of interesting. It was talking about, maybe they would offload processing to an iPhone, which doesn't really sound all that practical. But the discussion of how busy the Apple Vision Pro is just doing its operating, so they weren't going to be releasing Apple Intelligence on it. To me, that looks like an opportunity where you could pair it with a phone or pair it with a Mac and have that second device do some of the Apple Intelligence processing and feed it back into the Vision Pro. So I'm not sure that it really is a cost-cutting move as much as it is adding additional features without having to replace hardware right away. Who knows?
Yeah, and a lot of these things, I mean, it is really helpful to have the processing happen right there on the headset, especially for the real-time control. Like I expect that the R1, R2, that kind of stuff is not going to get offloaded to a Mac or an iPhone. But I mean, the PCVR folks, they've been tethered very often to get the good graphics, to get really good performance. And so you could imagine that that portion of a Vision Pro could be handling a lot more of those graphics and processing. That's not something real time that needs to happen to make sure you don't fall over and trip or anything. And so hopefully that could be an offload. I mean, it's amazing how small they can get VR headsets now. There's the big screen VR, is just a tiny little VR headset. And they've even done a thing for a while now where you can send in a face scan and get it molded. And it's just something like 130 grams or a little more. It's just a very small headset. And I could imagine some appetite for that. It's hard to say, though. And I mean, a lot of these rumors, we've known that a cheaper Vision is probably coming by the fact that they call it Vision Pro. Like Apple makes Pro things and not Pro things. So it's not the biggest stretch of the imagination to say, hey, we're going to get something cheaper in the future. And so, yeah, I think this was definitely the time for Apple to throw stuff at the wall, which is fascinating for one of the most valuable companies often on the planet to be experimenting with things like virtual googly eyes that mimic your real eyes on the outside and all these kinds of things to see if they stick. And so there's definitely some low-hanging fruit there where they could make it lighter, use different materials, cut some screens, cut some costs. I think people have said the bill of materials is something like $1,500 in that ballpark. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what happens. But there is that adage that for the product to get really good, you want to wait till like the third generation or so when they've super started to settle in. So we'll see. I would not be surprised if next year or something we get the non-pro headset, and then the year after, kind of a TikTok cycle, you get the pro or something along those lines. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, they said possibly late 2025 or 2026. The thing that bothers me a little bit is about the AI. There was one of these articles explained why pretty well. And it talked about how the two processors that are in the headset working so much, there's such a load on them that to be able to put AI on top of them is a thing. But they said for on device, probably. But when you get to getting into Apple's AI cloud, that might be a challenge. Or and I'm already using ChatGPT through my Vision Pro headset. So they're saying off-device stuff is not a problem. On-device stuff is not or should not be a problem. But it's the Apple extended cloud, those larger requests, that would be a problem on the device, given how the two chips that they have on the device are already running a bunch of stuff in order to create the environment. There's about 5 articles here. A couple from Mac Rumors, one from The Verge, one from Mac Daily News, and one from Cult of Mac. And I'll have all of those in the notes for the episode, so you can find and link to these. And I think the one that you were talking about, the one that just came out today, Eric, was the Mac Rumors article. Cheaper Apple Vision headset might require a tethered phone or Mac. And they call it Mac Rumors for a reason. We'll see if it actualizes. I've had my own predictions about what would happen in the past, and they never came out the way I wanted them to be. So we'll see what happens with the headset and all the headset stuff. That's the cheaper, the Vision Pro Lite, or whatever they're going to call it, Vision Pro Mini, who knows, or the Vision Pro Air, or the Vision Air. There's all sorts of marvelous rumors around it. I don't think it's a dying platform. I think it's an exciting platform, and anybody who's spent time with it, I think, agrees. They might disagree with the comfortableness of the headset. They might disagree with some of the things they can't get, but it's really quite a powerful new environment. I think I'm looking for meaningfulness in spatial computing is about. Is there something that's about it that's more than just being able to drag your windows all over the place or your apps all over the place? Is there something that's can be done about having a three-dimensional environment in terms of productivity, definitely for gaming and things like that. But in terms of productivity, is there something that's unique about that environment you can't get anywhere else? I think Passage is one of those things, actually. You really can't wrap yourself in an environment on any other kind of device. Some other news for those of you who and I'll be honest, I have it on 2 of my 3 screens that I'm sitting in front of. You can now get the Vision Pro, one of the Vision Pro environments as a wallpaper. And 9 to 5 Mac has the article that we have there has got the Mount Hood environment.
It looks really nice on an iPad.
Nice.
It looks nice on monitors. I don't have it on my main monitor. I have it on my 2 side monitors because I don't like with icons on my screen with white lettering. If it's a light background, I can't read what the icon is. So my center screen is all black. It's just a black color background so I can do my work on it. And then the side screens are where I throw windows that I'm working with. So
it's such a good environment. Like I love when the gentle rain starts, that like surprised me. It gave me chills. I was like, oh, this is really nice. More than just something to look at.
There's a Vision Pro. I love this. I love just the title of this article. It's clickbait. It is clickbait. There's a Vision Pro. I've lost it. It's a 9 to 5 Mac article. Vision Pro bug fixed. Websites can no longer fill your room with bats. And apparently, 3D objects, and there is that beautiful AI, which is an app within Vision Pro where you can get a whole catalog of 3D objects that people have created or has been created. Apparently, the flying bats were proof of concept, and they persist even after you quit Safari. I think it's funny. It's like, I want that back. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, that feels like a fun toggle. I'm like, just surprise me. Just throw in, I'm going to open up, go to a USDZ or reality file sharing site and just see what happens. That should be a nice little feature.
Yeah, it's very cool. Oh, and this site also has a video that someone shot of the bats flying around their room. That's pretty cool. Now fixed though.
The right time of year that could be really popular.
They paid somebody a bug bounty to find the bug, and I guess then fixed it, or it's now fixed. But that's just an interesting piece of a little bit of article in there. And then last 2 things that I've got on the list are 2 Apple Arcade launches 2 hit games on Apple Vision Pro. And as I said before, I'm not a big gamer. I don't know if either of you have looked into this racing game, Warped Kart Racers, and Cityscapes. Now, Cityscapes Sim Builder, I think, is not available yet, but the Warped Kart Racers, it looks like Mario Kart. I mean, from what I could see of the video of it, but you can put different characters in, Family Guy characters, and then they had
King of the Hill,
American Dad, and Solar Opposites that you can, I guess, race against if you want to do that with Warped Kart Racers.
Yeah, I haven't played that one. I have played the City Builder, which sounds like it would be a whole lot of fun to have as like as a volume or something in 3 dimensions where I could just casually build up my city on the side. I'm a sucker for those kinds of casual games that don't require a ton of brain space and I can do other things while I'm.
So have you played it on Vision Pro, or have you played it?
No, I've played that on iPad and iPhone and such.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. Those casual games, like the 3-dimensional puzzle games that are in Vision Pro, that's sort of my kind of quiet Zen wind down time sort of experience for me. That's about as arcadey as I get. Is puzzle games. Eric, what about you?
Well, the Cityscape one kind of appeals to me. Something that it's like, chess, any game that could be laid out on a table and you can view it from different angles. Even the airport takeoff and landings where you can stick it on the corner of the room and watch planes take off and land. I just find that kind of fun. So I'll try the Cityscapes one. I guess I don't have a lot of luck racing around a racetrack and actually, making it all the way around. So I prefer my objects more firmly anchored to the ground.
Have you done any of the have you done any of the games in space, Eric? The table games with chess or
There is one
with the
that's
kind of battleship?
yeah,
Yeah.
that the battleship one. That was
Yeah.
kind of neat. I did
Yeah.
not win, but it was kind of neat.
And I think they've introduced a game which is multiplayer. So you can have more people in seats. So it's not just you against the computer if no one's in your room, or you against somebody else, and the other people get to watch. But apparently, this one is a multi kind of sit at the table game with multiple players that can join. So I think they're expanding that. Hope we see more of those kinds of things from a social aspect. So that's it for news. Matthew, let's talk about your experience. You gave us a little at the beginning, and then most importantly, let's talk about Passage.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. Oh, let's see. My experience with the Vision Pro, I did get it day one. Was very excited to grab that and went through the whole tutorial and setup. And that was a little rough at the Apple Store. They like kind of forgot to recalibrate it for me at the beginning. But we got off the ground, and of course, I did get one and kept it through those tumultuous first 2 weeks when so many influencers were returning their Vision Pros before the receipt ran out or some such return policy. But no, yeah, we
Did you have optical
I
inserts, or
don't
did you have you
know.
have like perfect vision?
I have pretty good, very good vision. I got my vision checked because I would look in the distance at Apple's environments and I would be like, I can't quite make out like the leaves on the tops of the trees of Yosemite. I was like, they look a little fuzzy. And I was like, do I have astigmatism or something? And so I just kept looking at it and I got my eyes checked again. They're like, you're good. And so I was like, what? I don't know. And so eventually I started doing more looking around, and sure enough, it's not retina resolution, and Apple is careful not to call it retina resolution. And there was even that article from a while ago that was saying that Apple was purposefully blurring the pixels just a tiny bit so that you couldn't make out the screen door effect exactly,
Hmm.
instead of what the Quest 3 is doing, where they do make it very sharp, but you can kind of see the boxy pixels a little bit. And so there was that going on. And finally, when that happened, I was like, okay, good. I have not lost my sanity. And it also made the Vision Pro much more enjoyable for me because I would stop worrying about it and straining my eyes to look at the tiny twigs in the distance and just kind of let myself be immersed in. And that made the Vision Pro much more fun. And so that was very good. But yeah, my developer partner and I, Abe, we had thought about what we wanted to do, what would be best suited for the platform, and tossed around 30 different ideas, including, what would be doable for us. And one of the things we set upon was just to make really cool, immersive spaces, lean into the VR side of the spectrum of the platform and give people a space to focus in. Like there's that moment when you're working and you're really focused in on a problem and you just kind of throw on a pair of headphones and get down to business. Like that is a wonderful use case for the Vision Pro that I myself have used. Like I'm done with meetings for the day. I don't want to be distracted by whatever's happening on Twitter or wherever else. So I can just zone out and turn on one of the immersive environments and go for it. And so we thought, oh, this would be great. And there was an API that lets you generate 360 environments. So we went kind of the Gen AI route, but also started incorporating actual artist places, and it kind of became a gateway to be like, well, we could allow people to upload their own 360 images, and we can include just real artist photographs and artwork and let people be immersed there. So the Gen AI piece is still a big part of it, and we've worked with like the provider to get it more and more realistic. It's also kind of a fraught area, we realize, and so anyway, that's a whole separate conversation
Yeah,
about this ethics of
I
Gen AI.
I paid for it, downloaded the app, and got to see, because when you look at the app, the description about it in an app store, you get a little bit about what it is, but you don't really know it until you've got the app, until you really know to see what the differences are between these generated AI kind of environments and then the real photographic environments that you have up there. And I can see use cases for both.
Yep.
In terms of being surrounded or set in an environment.
It's definitely better for like the abstract art kind of situations. Like if you want a photorealistic cabin that's cozy and there's snow outside or something, you're much better off doing right now just a real artist version of that. And that's something we kind of want to lean into. So I've definitely made environments where well, I guess I should say once you have the environments, there's a question of, well, what do you do? Like it's one thing to be immersed, but then what? And so we went so far as to make our own offline editor. And we were like, okay, well, people can zone out and write creatively about things and write a story and have like the description of their surrounding be part of that story. And so we did that. But the thing that we kept using our Vision Pro for is just watching cool content. Like I don't have a second TV in the house or anything like that, but I do have this, and it is very fun. I think my iPad suffers most of all from me having the Vision Pro, because that's the thing that's the most fun to watch stuff on when I have a moment on my own.
I have, I've got a large library of Apple movies that I've purchased over the years, and definitely now the 3D stuff. But I'll start a movie on Vision Pro, and then although I come up here in the office and I've got 3 screens, I could continue to run the movie on one screen. It's sort of like, nah, that just doesn't feel good anymore. Really to sit with that kind of immersive experience.
Yeah. And so we wanted to be watching cool content and such. And so we built a little in-app browser, because one of the things about full immersion mode is you can't see other third-party apps. Like we were saying before, you go into immersion and you can't look at HBO Max or Hulu compatible iPad app. Well, actually, they don't even have a Hulu compatible iPad app. I checked. So I watched some Hulu through the browser on Passage and made like a custom environment. It was like Frankenstein's lab to watch the movie Poor Things, which if you've seen it is apropos. So that was really fun. So doing little things like that has been very fun. And yeah, so we started making this immersion, and that's kind of where we're at, and looking at the different possibilities. There's definitely the desire now to either create on our own these custom environments that Apple is now giving guidance on how to create. They have this whole sample project that says this is the best way to make a custom environment that is like the system environment. And it has everything from the dynamic lighting to almost realistic textures that they have in the sample project. And they have like the animated water. They show a nice way to do the animated water. So they've done a spectacular job this WWDC on providing just very rich sample apps, which as a longtime developer it's much more helpful to get that than just an article on here's how you use it, to like see it in practice.
So with Apple, from your perspective, so into supporting environment development, and that's a big part for your app. The fear I think I would think if I was a developer is, when is my next idea going to be Sherlocked?
Absolutely.
And how soon will it be Sherlocked? Should I put the app on sale because I know it's going to be Sherlocked? But it sounds to me, from what you're saying, Apple's giving you all the support and APIs and things that you need to do environments in a way that's going to fit well with the platform, that it doesn't seem like they want you to go away or they're going to close you down.
No, I don't think at this point they want that. And they've done a lot with immersive environments. Like, especially, I think their eye toward immersive environments isn't specifically an app like ours that is kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of a wallpaper app for your Vision Pro. Do all kinds of cool stuff while you're immersed in all kinds of different worlds. That's like definitely one kind of app, and there are still wallpaper apps on the iPhone, despite all of the support for wallpapers around, and somehow they're still trucking. But I think Apple also has in mind, like, here's how you make a great immersive environment for your game or for your media app. Like one big set of sample apps they released were these gorgeous theater mode apps that you can kind of tell Disney and HBO Max, or formerly HBO Max, got access to, which takes whatever video you're looking at and puts it kind of far away and large as a big movie screen. And for Max, it's the Game of Thrones immersive environment, and does some more effects, like has special reverb so that the sound sounds like you're actually in the room and it's bouncing off the walls in the right way, has a little bit of reflection on the surface. They released the code and the APIs to show other people, like, this is how you can do it. So if people do find good ways to make their Netflix or YouTube viewers that won't come to the platform just yet, you can still finagle perhaps, or it's more for actual content players, but you can have a way to look at, say, your photo roll video or some other videos and have them uploaded to a lot of these video players that are already up there. And now they can take advantage of these gorgeous cinematic experiences and make all sorts of custom environments for the purpose of watching media. So, I just really like the teams at the Vision Pro software crew that have thought these out and are kind of enabling this, because it's a lot of fun.
I read somewhere today, I think, that Disney is going to open up their environments to include other theater forms. So it's not just going to be the ones that they have, but you'll be able to add other theater immersive environments into the Disney app if you want to.
That's right. Well, one thing they've done is they've made it so that when you have, and that's probably the Apple system environments they're going to be opening up, because there's a way when you have the default player, you'll get this little icon at the top left where you can pick an immersive environment, and it tries to be smart and picks like the light mode or dark mode of the last environment you were in. And so those, if you really wanted to watch a Disney nature show in the Mount Hood environment, for instance, you'll be able to do that, and it will fit right in nicely, just the way Apple TV's app does it and stuff like that.
So I asked this question. I've asked this question of developers, but I always feel guilty about asking it because I don't want you to give away your secrets. So sort of what's next with Passage, or what other things are you knocking around?
Oh,
and again,
I mean, it's such a small platform and there's so much place. Like I'm not terribly worried about people stealing the roadmap, because for one, there's still a ton in execution that you have to do right. And ideas are kind of cheap. But I mean, the things we've thought about are, for one, being able to move around in actual 3D environments. Like imagine the Mount Hood environment, but then you can navigate to the top of the mountain or Yosemite or something.
Oh.
You could go under, like you could move yourself around the world.
So can I make not a suggestion, but an analogy to that? It would be like being on Google Maps and pointing your arrow a little further, clicking on it and moving down the road a piece.
Oh, yeah.
But you could do that in Mount Hood, or you could do that in different environments. That'd be cool.
That's a really good way to do it. And it's really tricky to think about these things because you don't want to make people motion sick. You don't want to like move massive places around. So like zooming people entirely, like you have to be cognizant of that. Several things we did with Passage were along those lines, where we said to ourselves, look, we want to be a productivity app with immersive environments. That means you need to see the keyboard. Apple had not made the keyboard thing yet. So we were like, how do we do this? So we said, okay, we can't do the full immersion with the reality dial because that disables pass-through. When you don't put anything up, but you go full immersion, you'll notice in a lot of apps, it goes to full black first. And then the content comes up there because there's just a few seconds of loading, or a second and a half of loading that happens. And even the big apps. And so we're like, okay, we can't use the full immersion mode. What if we use the mixed reality mode? And we can just put just fill the whole room with the digital content instead of overlaying things on the floor or desk or something. Just fill it all like VR, and then we'll have access to the pass-through. And we made our keyboard cutout, And so that's what we did for that mode. It's a little confusing, and I'm glad Apple Sherlocked this whole idea, because now we can get rid of those chunks of code to make the keyboard appear. But it was very complex, because once we did that, we were like, okay, we've overlaid the user's entire room with digital stuff, which is not great if you now need to get up and walk around, because things don't disappear. So we had to make more code to say, okay, if you start at this location, and we made custom metal shaders and graphics, low-level graphics things to say, if you move a certain distance away, we need to make our environment fade out just like the default environment does,
Yeah.
so that you don't trip over the futon or whatever. And so we did all that just to really make sure that people feel, safe and secure using the app and really respect them. The one thing we did that's a little trickier was you can make your environment, but I don't know if you've ever wanted to do this, but once you're in Mount Hood or the moon, you're kind of looking in just one direction. Like, what if you wanted to have what's behind you in front of you? There's a little bit of a trick that somebody showed me, where you can like turn your head and hold down the home button, and then move back to your original location. You can do that kind of thing with there's a pro tip. If you want to do something. Trouble is, you have to recenter all your apps and drag them over after you've done that. So it's not very convenient. So one thing we did in Passage, we made a little toggle where you click on it, and then you can pinch and drag the whole world around. So you can
Nice.
Yeah, I saw that when I was playing with it, because I'm like, okay, do I have to turn around all the time to see, to see what's behind me? And I think there's one, it's a seashore in a cave. And it was like, I wanted to see what was behind me and what was inside the cave environment. And pulling it around was really rather cool in terms of doing that.
The balance with that was, I had to get we worked to say, okay, if I make the pinch too sensitive, you're going to get dizzy. Like if you made it so that you move it around and it's too fast, it's going to be uncomfortable. So we spent some time saying it's better to have like long motions and have to do a little bit more work to get the room moving around just right, instead of making people dizzy. So there are trade-offs like that. And so thinking about how to move around the world, like, do we do the teleport thing that some of the old ILM lab games like Vader Immortal, like they used to do for that, where you just kind of fade into the new location after a target, and like that, all kinds of things to think about. So that's the kind of stuff that's really fun to try out and play with. There's all sorts of different, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So did the pass through in terms of Apple keyboards and devices help your whole situation in terms of having to kind of have to cut that out?
Yeah, it really does, because for one thing, it's less complicated code. For starters, when we're testing a release, we don't have to say, okay, now we have to redo everything we did, but switch to the other immersion mode. Like, we just get to not have that whole path. So a little less for us.
Yeah, when that story came out, they said it was only going to work on Apple keyboards and Magic keyboards and Magic mouses. I haven't tried it on anything else, but I saw some things on Reddit where people said, well, it doesn't, but you kind of have to look down at the keyboard and then it comes out and you can start using it at that point. So
another thing I found is that when I have the keyboard in, I have to actually have a text field be active, and then it starts. For instance, I started out in immersion and I couldn't see the keyboard, and I was like, I wonder what happens if I click into or tap into a text field, like a search bar or the editor on Passage, and then it faded into view. I was like, okay, I get what you're doing. And so there are some things where I kind of like our version better because it's a resizable cutout. You can do it, but it's also a little bit of a burden on the user to learn two different systems. So I think the simplicity of letting Apple take on that burden will probably pay off in the long run. So,
although I have to say that cutout works for more than keyboards.
It does, like your coffee cup or what have you,
or your pie.
Yeah, no, it's nice. So it's kind of bittersweet. Although it is kind of cool that when you have the keyboard exposed, it does kind of feather out around the edges too. So you can see a little bit more than the keyboard, but it's mostly the keyboard. So That's tricky, but we'll move on from that and let them worry about bringing more keyboard support. They had this whole session, maybe behind the scenes look, is where you can scan a 3D object and then train it in Create ML is the name of their program in order for it to be recognized in Vision Pro, and then you could attach sparkles, or I think they showed an example of attaching any kind of flowers you want to a vase. But it's an intense process. So I think I don't think they're just trying to lock people into their ecosystem by having one kind of keyboard. I think they just wanted it to work really well and make sure that the keyboard can be recognized. And I wouldn't be surprised for them to bring it to keyboards in general later, or other mice and all sorts of things. So we'll see. Maybe that's just hopefulness on my part, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that happened. Gosh, what else do we want to do with Passage? Like I would love to feature 3D artists and actual people and have contests and things where real artists are putting up their work and get both paid and recognized for it. But I do have a day job, so chances are that's a big effort. And so, yeah, there's that. There's a whole different 3D way of viewing content. It's called Gaussian splatting. It's this kind of a niche machine learning field, but on the subject of cool apps to try on Vision Pro, there's one called Metal Splatter, and it is the open source app, which is just on GitHub, but it's also on the store. And you're able to take what are called Gaussian splats from Polycam or anywhere you can find one. It's like a .ply file, I think it is. I have to double check on that. But it basically kind of creates this, it's a way to recreate a 3D environment. So you take lots of pictures of your environment or of a single object, and instead of doing LiDAR scanning and then carefully putting images on top of it like you would with photogrammetry, you kind of take a bunch of pictures and let machine learning figure out the best way to bring all those together into a cohesive whole. And so it's this, when you run it, it's this strange dreamlike world where if you move a little bit too much, everything splays out into kind of a Mr. Clouds, and it's fascinating. But that's a whole other way that people could be immersed in an environment in a true 3D way.
The app is called what? Metal
Splatter. One
Splatter.
word. Oh yeah.
All right. We'll have that in the episode notes. I'll look it up and play with it, and hopefully not throw up.
Yeah. And heads up, maybe don't spend too much time on it, because it is one of the only apps that made my Vision Pro a little bit heated. Like you can definitely tell that the Vision Pro is using the full capacity of its the neural engines on its chips to do all its work, because it makes apps that also want to use those work very hard.
So I've got a question, and then you can, and then the second part, we can kind of talk about anything else that you'd like to in terms of Passage.
Sure.
There are some things coming out on Vision OS 2 that were touted as helping developers: volumetric APIs, tabletop kits, and enterprise APIs. Any of those have relevance to Passage or the work that you're doing?
Not directly as the app stands now. We don't use any volumes in Passage as of yet. Neither tabletop kit, and the enterprise APIs, not those either. Those are kind of, you have to ask Apple like special permission to be able to use the enterprise APIs, or for companies keeping track of things happening on factory floors or what have you, where they get direct access to the camera and all sorts of things like that. So nothing in those that we can use, but they are very welcome in the Vision Pro developer circles I've looked at, and I pulled up some of the sample apps, especially for Tabletop Kit. It was just fascinating. They had these very carefully, meticulously made little robots on a table, very realistic and reflecting the light, and They had it all set up where you can pick up cards and place little tokens and have a game track. They've really worked hard to make those happen. And so
for folks who are doing that kind of work, does this kit speed the whole process up?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It speeds it up because, for one, a lot of, especially for multiplayer, like we were talking about, a lot of table kit will handle a lot of the multiplayer for you. You just say, this table needs 3 players, and here's the board for them, and it'll synchronize a lot of the objects and things on its own. There was a lot going on with SharePlay. We added SharePlay to our app. It works pretty well for 2 people. I think with 3 people, we need to do some optimizing because things get a little clogged up when we're sharing the massive 360 images. But there has been some good work where now, in order to use things like SharePlay or tabletop kits, SharePlay, I imagine, you can now develop and not need to have 2 people physically on a Vision Pro to do the development work. Like, you can imagine that you're there and you're debugging. You're like, I wonder what would happen if I change this. And in order to test it, you have to get your buddy on a Vision Pro to test it with you. So it was a really hard thing to overcome. So now they have that built into the simulator. From what I've heard, I haven't tried it out myself, but I did see in the release notes that they've made it where you can simulate a SharePlay session. And so that should make for many more rich experiences because it's just more fun to do these things with other people. So looking forward to that.
That's great. Anything else about Passage you'd like to share with listeners?
Well, we've localized it, so that was in Japanese, and so we're preparing for that launch, and we got Japanese native speakers to go over our work and refine it a bit. So excited to see what the audience thinks of that. And we went through and localized all the different styles of worlds you can create and the whole bit, and we made it so that it will translate your prompt, so you don't have to enter an English prompt in the Japanese version of Passage. You can just type in Japanese, and we'll do the best we can with translation on our end. So that's been a lot of fun. And so it'll be interesting as a developer to see what happens as the Vision Pro goes to these other countries. That's coming up quick.
Yep. I always now have the habit of paying attention when something is upgraded or updated. An app is updated. I jump right to the page to find out, okay, what did they do in this version that just came out 4 hours ago that's different? Because I want to know how they're tweaking things, and you can do that within the App Store in Vision.
And I had to say that 90% of the time it just says bug fixes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being with us. We have a few more topics we want to cover, obviously, and want your input or feedback on that.
Sure thing.
But it's great to hear the story of Passage, and the way it's put together and the work that you do is just fascinating to those of us that are consumers and not developers to hear about. I had this in the show notes for last show, and we didn't get to it. Without having anything to purchase, I start to get a little itchy. And I was curious about these accessory straps, these head straps that are available on the market. And I ordered one from Spigen and put it on. Either I have a very flat head, but I tightened it as much as I could, and I still could slip my hand through the head strap. There was space between the strap and my head. And so I was like, okay, well, that product doesn't work for me. And someone encouraged me to write the company. So I wrote the company, and I did that last week and waited about 4 days and got a really nice email back from them that basically gave me links to videos that would show me how to tighten the straps. I was an idiot and didn't know how to do that. So the problem is still not solved. Now, Eric, who has a massive head, I might Eric, I might put this in the mail to you, or when I see you at MacStock, bring it, and you can tell me if it does anything for you. But looking at the reviews, I never heard of any problems with sizing. And it's like those straps that you have on shoulder bags that you
Yeah.
can tighten or loosen. I've got it as tight as I can, as tight up as I can. Still a lot of space up there. I'll have a link in the show notes for folks who are interested in looking at it. And that not satisfying me, there's been a lot of promotions for AnaPro, and AnaPro is another device that basically is almost like a plastic visor that has padding attachments to it, and then that clips onto your Vision Pro, and it's supposed to give you a little bit more balance and stability. It was okay. It just seemed like I was putting more onto my headset to get minimal benefit from it. Again, it was a situation where they had thinner versions of it. They had really soft versions of it that were thick. And then so they sent you a couple of these Velcro pads that you could put on the device. I don't know if I need anything else. I mean, I'm not having problems wearing the headset. Are you having any problems, Matt?
No, it's so weird. Like I thought that I would be bothered. Like I felt uncomfortable using the Quest 2 for, half an hour and such, but I don't know what it is. I think I just use the single strap, like the solo band, solo nib band. And I don't even use the other one at all, and it's fine. Like possibly the only difference I can think of is that I have been carrying my 3-year-old son, or was now 4, but 3-year-old on my shoulders a lot, and now I have a much stronger neck or something. No, I have no idea what changed. But yeah, I find it pretty comfortable. Like I throw it on, and it's not like sometimes it's comfortable just because I'll lay back in bed and watch a movie kind of halfway up toward the ceiling, and that's a very relaxing spot to be in. But other times, and I'm wearing it and I'm doing laundry and watching TV or something, yeah, I'm just all around, or encoding especially. I'll be leaned a little closer to the computer, and you would think that the leverage would bother my neck, but it's been pretty good for me. Like I don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be lighter, but so far, at least for my body type or head type or whatever it is, it works pretty good. Like I do the setup where I hold it up and then I have to angle it in like at 30 degrees or something up just right so that it's balanced between my cheekbones and forehead. But once I've got that in, I just forget that I'm wearing the blasted thing once I'm deep into a coding session or something.
Yeah. I was looking for a miracle cure where no cure was needed. But with these 2 strap devices, people were talking about, on Reddit, how these are great. I used to have all sorts of problems. So I tried them, and that's my review of those 2 items.
So I might have to give it a try then, because
I'll bring them.
Single band. I have to use the dual loop, but I found I can use the dual loop kind of loose, and I just set it out of my head, and it's just there, and I can go 4 or 5 hours without any issues. That single loop I get about 20 minutes, and if you get it exactly right, like within a millimeter, up or down or exactly, then it's not bad. But I can't, I have to be sitting up straight. I can't like lean over or lean back or whatever. Whereas with the dual loop, I can do kind of all of the stuff. And the only thing I can think of is that the light shield might matter a lot. And with a different light shield, maybe I wouldn't have the problem. Like it's not quite there. And I had maybe 4 or 5 different measurements for the light shield, like different ones. And I only went through 2 of them. I didn't try like the whole set of possibilities for me. And so maybe it was just off. I'm not really sure. But the dual loop, it's perfect. It's comfortable. I don't have any issues. So
I'm very scared that they will come out with the Vision Air and I will buy it just for the comfort. Like it'll convince myself that it'll be the way to go.
I don't know. I'll bring these with me to Macstock, Eric, if you want to try them out. We're getting together in a couple of weeks at Macstock Conference and Expo. So you're going to bring your Vision Pro headset with you. I'll bring mine with me, and I'll bring the attachments and you can play with them. I want to talk about a couple of apps since we've been talking a lot about watching videos. And I think these are worth mentioning. You've heard a lot of promotion about, and Theater is the app that was developed by Sandwich that also did television. And I went ahead and got Theater. Obviously, Theater was the app that they were introducing the live talk show and stream the talk show through. It has, to me, I'm looking for something that I can run all of my various streams through and various accounts through. And Theater is not it. It is basically YouTube and YouTube solo. The other app that I heard about today, and it was through Reddit, is an app called Supercut. And so I purchased it, downloaded it, and it handles Netflix and what's the other one?
Prime Video.
Yeah, Prime Video. The thing is, you have to set both up, which you've got to do anyways. But it's not like I can go to a menu at that point and go, okay, I want to watch Netflix. Okay, I want to watch. You have to go to settings to switch from the signed up version of Netflix that you have or the signed up version of Prime that you have. So it's not a easy switch back and forth. The app that I've been using or have purchased and I'm using more and more now is Lens. And Lens has a lot of it opens up, it gives you a panel with a bunch of different possibilities, including Hulu, which we mentioned earlier, that you can put your Hulu account on it. You can do YouTube. You can do YouTube TV, which is my provider in terms of stream television content. And you can do Prime. And I think there are spaces for other streaming services that you can do with it. It takes, again, you have to set up each one of these accounts on it. But once you set it up, it becomes a nice switchable panel of streaming content. I'm not sure it has environments. I'm not sure it has all the bells and whistles. It's just kind of a straight screen switching back and forth. But it is a app, I think, that folks might want to look at.
And I noticed it's surprising, or impressive rather, that Supercut, for instance, has Netflix. I tried Lens and went to Netflix.com and I was stopped because the app said Netflix evidently told them you can't do this because we need it to be, or Netflix was just complaining, so they disallowed Netflix in Lens. So I'm not sure what magic Supercut put together to get that going. And Prime is an interesting one because I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen like if I tried to watch The Boys or something in a custom environment in our app and also just in Safari. And so you go there and it takes you, it says, thanks for trying to watch Prime. You've got to use the app. Like there is some kind of default setting in Safari that Prime is on the lookout for to send people to their app. Like they recognize Vision Pro as a mobile device or maybe just a non-Mac device or something and send people that way. So kudos to the developers for getting their users access to Prime and Netflix. It's no small feat.
Now you've got me worried. I'm going to have to check out Lens tonight and see if my Netflix is still running through that as an option to see if that works. Just interesting apps that are out there for watching video. I kind of want it all. I want my Apple TV. I want it all the services in one, that I can just go to one app and have all of those in the way I want them. But 3 interesting apps. We'll have the links again in the discussion. So Matthew, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you will come back sometime.
Oh yeah, this is fun. Ask me any questions. This was great.
And and now you know the format in terms of the shared articles that we'll talk about or have some input on. But it's great to have you here. It's great to have your perspective. I'm learning and appreciating more and more about what developers do, and to think that this is your hobby.
It's very blessed to have this
it's
as a hobby.
amazing. Yeah. Thanks to Matthew for joining us and telling us about the Passage app. And thank you for tuning in. Check out the Passage app. It's a very cool environment app to play with. Our background music is Free Jazzy and is courtesy of Steve Combs from the Free Music Archive. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have an idea or you want to join us on a show, that's what we do. Email us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com, or you can just go to our website and there's a link through there. Our website is VisionProFiles.info. Spread the word to other visionaries. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.